Do you like horror movies and SpongeBob? Well, then you came to the right place, because today we're going to be taking a look at the best horror and spooky moments in the show SpongeBob SquarePants. Now, you might be thinking, it's a kid's cartoon, but don't discount it so quickly. If you're familiar with SpongeBob, you already know some of these things I'm talking about. But if not, let me take you down to Bikini Bottom and show you some of the best, most iconic moments of the show that also happen to be spooky or horror inspired. And no, the toenail scene is not included. Not everything creepy or unsettling is fun. If you have been living under a rock and don't know what SpongeBob is, it's the misadventures of a talking sea sponge who works at a fast food restaurant, attends boating school, and lives in an underwater pineapple. If you like what I do, then consider subscribing and let me know your thoughts in the comments. What are your favorite spooky SpongeBob moments? And did I miss one?
It feels like somebody
wants to sell me something!
I told you he was on to us!
This is not a list ranking these episodes from worst to best, but just a collection of 5 great spooky episodes from the show, in no particular order. Let's start out at number 5, with the episode Graveyard Shift. This is a classic episode. It's so well written, it's not surprising that people remember this one. The episode is about SpongeBob and Squidward, the 2 employees of the Krusty Krab, working overnight. The eeriness of being alone at night inspires Squidward to mess with SpongeBob by telling him a fake scary story about the hatchling slasher, a deranged ghost fry cook. However, that story appears to end up being true when strange things start happening at the Krusty Krab. Soon after, a bus pulls up in front and the hatchling slasher appears to them in the middle of the night. As he steps into the light, it turns out that it's just some guy. We soon find out, however, who actually was the one messing with SpongeBob and Squidward.
Wait! If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights?
Nosferatu!
This is masterful writing. The surreal yet intelligent and absurd humor of classic SpongeBob is what made this show legendary. I mean, who would have ever thought that Count Orlok, or Nosferatu, would be the one flickering the lights? You would never think that, but at the same time, why wouldn't he be the one doing that? Considering the show, it makes perfect sense. This episode is nearly perfect. The writing/dialogue, the music, the tone, the ambience, and the setting is presented very well. You really get the feel of horror or dread right before the hatchling slasher appears. And the part when Squidward is becoming more and more afraid, hearing the strange noises, or when SpongeBob wants to throw the trash away outside in the dark, is very relatable. For number 4, let's look at the episode Rock Bottom. This one is another classic. In this episode, SpongeBob and Patrick get on the wrong bus and end up in a strange city. SpongeBob is left to navigate the place alone after Patrick accidentally leaves him. He tries to figure out how to get back home as the bus is shut down for the night, eventually getting back with help from one of the townspeople. This episode is fantastic. The fear of being in a strange place with no transportation, phone, money, or way to get back home is truly terrifying.
This isn't your average everyday darkness. This is advanced darkness.
Especially back then when you couldn't just use a cell phone to call for help or look at a map. Again, the writing/dialogue, the setting, the ambience, the music, as well as the pacing is very well done. Everything works together to make you feel unsettled, knowing that you're in a bad position and not knowing how you're going to get out of it, which is a mark of great execution. I'm sure many who grew up in this era could relate being in a complicated situation such as this. For number 3, we are going to take a look at I Was a Teenage Gary. This episode is an early one from season 1. In this episode, SpongeBob is able to convince Squidward to look after Gary, SpongeBob's pet snail, while he's away for the weekend. So Squidward tells him he'll take care of him, but in reality, he neglects him as he pampers himself all weekend. When SpongeBob returns, they find Gary in bad shape, so they call the vet to come and help him. The vet comes to take a look at him, but in reality, he isn't of much help really.
This is definitely a snail.
I knew it! Oh, Squid, did you hear that?
Therefore, a shot of snail plasma must be carefully administered. Here you go.
Aren't you gonna do it?
Oh, no. I'm too squeamish.
Yeah, some vet. Well, this character is actually a vet and a regular doctor in the show, so yeah, I don't think you would want him to care for you. Anyways, Squidward accidentally injects SpongeBob with the snail plasma, which then has SpongeBob start freaking out. They then see Gary was dehydrated and not actually sick and just needed some water, so the plasma was not even needed. Squidward tells SpongeBob to forget about it, but SpongeBob's anxiety just increases and he worries even more, like the way I do about brain eating amoebas after getting some water in my nose. SpongeBob, however, actually starts turning into a snail because of the plasma, so when he shows up to Squidward's door, Squidward also starts freaking out and somehow also accidentally injects himself with the plasma. So that results in him, yes, also turning into a snail. This episode not only is a classic, but it's also a parody of classic monster movies. The most obvious reference is to the 1957 film, I Was a Teenage Werewolf. It is also pretty creepy. The transformation scene with SpongeBob becoming the snail is unsettling. The writing/dialogue, the tone, and the editing, like how it starts to slow down as he's turning into the snail, these are all great elements that make this episode unsettling. It's paired with the Halloween episode, Scaredy Pants, but this episode is actually more creepy than the Halloween one. For number 2, we're going to be taking a look at the Season 3 episode, Krabs Trash. As one of the highlights of the series, this episode is a must-watch. It starts out with Mr. Krabs wanting to do a yard sale, so he goes into the neighbor's trash cans, empties them out, and displays the junk as goods for sale. So people stop by and buy his antiques, along with SpongeBob and Patrick.
That ain't no toilet plunger. This here's an antique. It's a 17th century soup ladle. See?
Man, was I using mine wrong? How much?
$5.
I've only got 7.
Deal.
Patrick Star, you are one smart shopper.
And SpongeBob ends up buying a soda drinking hat. After they leave, Mr. Krabs is pleased with himself for having made the sales. However, immediately afterwards, several people arrive to our stand who are looking to buy the soda drinking hat that SpongeBob purchased. Mr. Krabs then realizes that the hat is not worthless junk, but in fact worth $1 million. Learning this, Mr. Krabs runs off to swindle the hat off of SpongeBob so he can sell it to them for the big money. After trying to trade other hats for the soda drinking hat, he resorts to scaring the hat off of SpongeBob with a fake story he made up about the hat belonging to somebody named
Smitty something.
Smitty what?
Smitty Werben Jaegerman Jensen.
However, what Mr. Krabs thought was a fake story ended up being very real, with the real person with that name. So Mr. Krabs heads off to the graveyard to steal the hat. Once here, we get this classic moment.
It's Squidward. What's he doing here? Here lie Squidward's hopes and dreams. What a baby.
Which is then immediately followed by another classic moment.
I'll never find the grave! Am I really gonna defile this grave for money? Of course I am!
So after doing just that, Mr. Krabs finds the hat, but the skeleton gets up and tells him he wants his hat back. So the army of the living dead then battled it out with Mr. Krabs all night. Afterwards, Mr. Krabs heads back to where the interested buyers are at, who apparently have been hanging around the stand all day and night, only for Mr. Krabs to find out that after all that trouble, the hat actually is worthless because they discovered it wasn't rare after all.
Well, that's a spirit breaker.
What a baby.
I love Mr. Krabs. He's one of my favorite characters, but it's also great to see greedy MFers like Mr. Krabs be put into their place. And similar to the other episodes, its biggest strengths lie in its writing/dialogue, its tone, but also its cinematography and its coloring/editing. There are a lot of shots that just look great. And the story, I mean, he grave robbed some guy. Am I really going to defile this grave for money? Of course I am. This is a kid's show? Great episode. And for number 1, we look at what's probably one of the darkest and most messed up episodes of SpongeBob, and that's Nasty Patty. This is an awesome episode. It's dark and gives the feel of crime noir films of the old days. It starts out with the health inspector arriving to the Krusty Krab, and in order to please him, Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob give him free food, hoping that will soften him up. However, they then start to question if he is the real health inspector, and think he's a fraud based on a report on the TV about a fake health inspector on the loose. So in vengeance, Mr. Krabs forces SpongeBob to make a nasty patty that will basically, well, poison him. The inspector prepares to eat it, but then starts to choke on a fly and passes out. Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob think he ate it, and they start laughing. The TV then comes on and says that the fake health inspector has been caught, and any inspectors at restaurants are the real one. They panic seeing what they have done, and how they think they've killed the real health inspector. So Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob go and bury the health inspector in a grave, hoping nobody would find out. When cops happen to pass by, they give them a ride back to the Krusty Krab. Mr. Krabs attends to the cops, while SpongeBob puts the body in the freezer. The pressure starts to get to them, however, and soon they confess how they've killed the health inspector. As that happens, the inspector actually wakes up and tells them they passed the inspection. Thinking it was all a joke, the cops let them go and they have Krabby Patties at full price. Of course. Yeah, this episode, man, it's wild. They think they've killed somebody and they attempted to get rid of the body. That's crazy. That's crazy. This is peak SpongeBob. There are so many great things here, and again, I know I've said it before, but that's because all these episodes share most of these great qualities. But the writing/dialogue, the story, the pacing, the cinematography, and tone all work together to contribute to the feel of these episodes. All of these feel a little bit different, but are still great. Graveyard Shift and Rock Bottom are both horror episodes, using the environments to their advantage. I Was a Teenage Gary, going for a 50s monster type movie. One Krabs Trash is a fantasy horror, something like Night of the Living Dead. And Nasty Patty, which is an obvious homage to the crime noir films. All different, but great, and with the common thread of spooky, horror, or disturbing.
This'll scare him.
Oh my gosh! A floating shopping list! Ah!
I'm not a shopping list. I'm a ghost.
So, that's it. 5 horror/spooky moments in SpongeBob. But don't be fooled, there are many, many more. Many good and some not so good. What did you think? Do you have any that were not on the list? I'd love to hear your thoughts below. Thanks for watching and supporting the channel. Subscribe and click the bell to be notified every time I upload a new video. And if you want to support the channel even more, visit me on Patreon. Well, that's it for now. And thanks for watching. Adios. If you liked this video, please consider watching another one. That lets YouTube know who to send out videos to, and that they are worth watching. Thanks again.